Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins almost had it. They almost managed to grab the kind of win that can change a season's direction, a win that can quiet the critics and silence the noise. But in the end, they let it slip through their fingers. The scoreboard read 27-24 in favor of the Carolina Panthers, and just like that, Miami found itself tumbling to 1-4 on the season. It wasn't supposed to go this way. Not for a team built around speed, precision, and the promise of quarterback Tua Tagovailoa finally coming into his prime. But as the clock hit zero and the reality of another loss began to settle over Hard Rock Stadium, one thing was clear. This Dolphins team is teetering on the edge, and Tua knows it. After the game, Tua didn't hold back. His tone wasn't angry, but it carried the weight of a man who's tired of being on the wrong end of close calls. "No one wants to start the season 1-4, he said, his voice steady but his words cutting deep. You know, it's not like our team goes out there and we want to give up this, or we want to not convert our third downs in the second half. You know, there are just so many things that go into it. And we got to figure this out. That's not just another player giving the standard post-game speech. That's a quarterback taking ownership. A leader refusing to let complacency creep in. And that's what makes this moment so defining for Miami. You can hear the frustration, but beneath it, there's resolve. Tua isn't washing his hands of the team's mistakes. He's diving right into them. He's saying, we need to be better, and crucially, he's including himself in that we. That's what leadership looks like when the lights are brightest and the losses sting the most. Because make no mistake, this one hurt. Miami jumped out to a 17-0 lead. They had the Panthers exactly where they wanted them, back on their heels, forced to chase. The offense was humming, the defense was flying to the ball, and it looked like the Dolphins had finally found the rhythm that had eluded them through the first 4 games. But then, almost inexplicably, the energy shifted. The Panthers started chipping away, play by play, drive by drive. Miami's offensive drives started stalling. Third downs became nightmares, and that crisp early tempo evaporated into thin, humid South Florida air. When Mike McDaniel addressed the media afterward, you could tell he was trying to process the collapse himself. He's known as one of the most innovative offensive minds in football, a coach who understands rhythm, who plays with tempo, who knows how to keep a defense guessing. But even he was left shaking his head at how his team let a sure win disintegrate. We are a much better team than letting a 17-0 lead eviscerate, McDaniel admitted, and that word, eviscerate, felt painfully accurate. Because that's exactly what it was. Miami's lead wasn't just lost. It was gutted, piece by piece, right in front of them. And that's where this team's biggest challenge lies. Not in talent, not in coaching creativity, but in resilience. The Dolphins have spent the last few seasons trying to prove they're more than just a team built for highlight reels. They've got the speed, sure. TYREEK Hill blazing downfield, Jalen Waddle stretching defenses, Raheem Mostert cutting through lanes like a missile. But what they need now is toughness. Mental toughness. The kind that shows up when momentum swings the other way. When you're up by 17 and the other team lands a punch. That's what Tua's message is really about. It's not about stats or schemes. It's about grit. Because right now, the Dolphins are a team that can look elite for one half and completely unrecognizable in the next. And no one knows that better than their quarterback. You can sense that Tua is done with moral victories. He's had enough of almosts and if-onlys. He's not the same soft-spoken young quarterback who used to deflect every bit of criticism with a smile. He's grown into a player who demands accountability, not just from himself, but from everyone wearing aqua and orange. When he says, we got to figure this out, he's talking to every guy in that locker room who's missed an assignment, dropped a ball, or blown a coverage. He's challenging them to match his intensity, to rise with him instead of waiting for someone else to lead. That's how championship cultures are built. They don't start with talent. They start with accountability. And yet, even as the team tries to rally behind his words, the questions about Miami's identity are louder than ever. Is this a team built to finish? Can they hold on to leads, especially against opponents who refuse to back down? Because if we're being honest, this game against Carolina was one they should have dominated. The Panthers came in struggling, their offense inconsistent, their defense vulnerable. But instead of putting them away, Miami let them hang around. And in the NFL, that's a death sentence. You give a desperate team hope, and they'll take your heart with them. That's exactly what happened Sunday. McDaniel knows it, too. You could see it in his body language. The once playful, confident coach stood at the podium looking like a man who had just seen the ghost of every blown lead from every young team he's ever coached. His words were measured, but the message was sharp. We need to play complete games. We can't keep putting together 30 good minutes and expect to win. That's the heart of Miami's struggle, inconsistency. When they're good, they're electric. But when they're off, they fall apart in ways that elite teams don't. That gap between potential and performance is what's killing them. And it's not just a coaching problem or a quarterback issue. It's a collective one. The defense that started so strong suddenly couldn't stop the run. Tackles were missed, coverages were blown, and what was once a wall turned into a revolving door. The offense, once fluid and confident, started pressing. Passes went just a hair too long, timing routes broke down, and you could almost feel the tension tightening around the team. They weren't playing to win anymore. They were playing not to lose. That's the worst mindset any team can have, and it's a trap Miami keeps falling into. Tua's comments, then, come at the perfect time. Because this isn't just about fixing a few plays or tweaking the playbook. It's about resetting the entire mentality of the locker room. No one wants to start 1-4, he said, and that line speaks volumes. It's not just frustration, it's a warning. This season can still be salvaged, but only if everyone buys in now. That's the kind of message that separates leaders from stars. Stars make plays. Leaders change attitudes. And for all the criticism Tua has faced over his career, from the injury concerns to the doubters questioning his arm strength, he's showing something that can't be measured on a stat sheet: accountability. As for McDaniel, he's in a different kind of spotlight now. The offensive genius label is nice when you're winning, but when your team keeps blowing leads, that creativity starts to look like overcomplication. He's learning that in the NFL, being the smartest guy in the room doesn't matter if your team can't close games. What matters is adaptability, discipline, and finishing. McDaniel's system works. We've seen it at its best. But now he needs to prove that his leadership works too, not just his playbook. Because at 1-4, the season can start slipping away fast, and no amount of clever scheming can save you if the locker room loses faith. Still, there's hope. It might sound strange after 4 losses, but this Dolphins team isn't broken. They're just bruised. Their losses have been close. Their offense has shown flashes of brilliance, and their quarterback is showing more fire than ever before. These are the ingredients of a comeback story, but only if they learn to finish what they start. And that starts with accountability, the kind Tua is trying to instill. Because when your leader believes, when he looks his teammates in the eyes and says, "We're better than this," it changes everything. It turns frustration into fuel. It turns disappointment into drive. The Dolphins' season isn't dead, but it's on life support. And maybe that's what this team needs, a wake-up call loud enough to shake off complacency. The message from Tua Tagovailoa couldn't be clearer. Stop giving up. Stop letting go of games. Stop making excuses. Start finishing. Start believing. Start fighting like a team that refuses to accept mediocrity. Because if they can do that, if they can turn this pain into purpose, the same story that feels like a collapse today might become the turning point that defines their season. And when that happens, when the Dolphins finally learn how to hold a lead, how to trust each other, and how to finish strong, this loss to Carolina will be remembered not as the breaking point, but as the spark that started their revival. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? It's been days since Tyreek Hill's injury sent shockwaves through the NFL community, and finally, the man himself has spoken out, and what he said has left fans stunned, analysts confused, and even some of his teammates in disbelief. This isn't just another player blaming bad luck or the grind of the season. No, Tyreek Hill decided to open up in a way that nobody saw coming, pointing fingers not at a rival, not at his body, not even at the turf, but at someone or something completely unexpected. And now, the internet is absolutely on fire. The Miami Dolphins star, known for his blazing speed and electric personality, has never been one to shy away from speaking his mind. But this time, there's a tone in his voice that feels different, like a storm that's been brewing for weeks, maybe even months. According to people close to the situation, TYREEK has been frustrated not just with the injury itself, but with the entire narrative surrounding it. For weeks, reporters speculated about whether it was a freak accident, poor conditioning, or simply the price of being one of the fastest men in football. But when TYREEK finally sat down to talk, the truth, or at least his version of it, sent shockwaves through the league. "I'm not blaming my body," Hill reportedly said in a closed interview that's now making its rounds across every sports outlet imaginable. "I'm not blaming the game. I'm blaming the system, the people who don't understand what it means to prepare like I do." That word, system, has become the keyword in every debate right now. Fans are dissecting it, commentators are spinning it, and insiders are whispering that what Hill meant wasn't just about the Dolphins' medical staff or their training approach. Some believe he's taking a subtle shot at the NFL's growing obsession with player tracking, rest protocols, and advanced metrics, things that, according to him, mess with a player's rhythm. But others are saying the finger might be pointed elsewhere, at someone inside the Dolphins organization, maybe even at a coach or coordinator. Remember, TYREEK has always been fiercely independent, the kind of player who trains by his own rules and trusts his instincts more than any analytics chart. "When they start telling me to slow down, to manage reps, to sit out certain drills, that's when things go wrong," Hill allegedly said, hinting that his injury might have been the result of overmanagement rather than overuse. That statement alone has sparked a wildfire of theories. Some fans argue that the team's staff pushed him too hard before the injury. Others believe they held him back so much that his body lost its rhythm, that sweet, precise timing that makes him so lethal on the field. If there's one thing everyone agrees on, it's that TYREEK Hill doesn't do quiet. The man's energy radiates through everything he does, whether he's scoring a touchdown, celebrating with fans, or roasting an opponent on social media. But after this injury, something changed. He went silent, for longer than anyone expected. For a player who lives online, who feeds off the crowd, to suddenly disappear, it raised eyebrows. Then, when he finally resurfaced, it wasn't with a cheerful post or a "we'll be back stronger" message. It was with frustration. It was with an edge. It was with the kind of honesty that can only come from someone who feels misunderstood. Insiders say that during his recovery, Hill clashed with parts of the Dolphins' performance staff about how quickly he should return. He's a competitor, always has been. Sitting out, watching his team fight without him, it eats at him. One source close to the locker room described the mood as tense. Coaches wanted to protect him. TYREEK wanted to explode back onto the field. "They don't know how I operate," he said. "When I say I'm ready, I mean I'm ready. I know my body better than anyone in the world." That confidence, that borderline defiance, is exactly what's made him a superstar, and also what's gotten him into friction with authority throughout his career. Now, here's where things get really wild. Some fans believe that TYREEK wasn't just talking about the team or the league. He might have been referring to the media. That's right. Some of the language in his recent comments suggests he's blaming the nonstop scrutiny, the constant narratives about his age, his speed, and his focus. When everyone keeps saying you're losing a step, your mind starts fighting your body, he said cryptically. That kind of energy gets in your head, and that's when you make mistakes. That's when injuries happen. Imagine that. One of the fastest men alive suggesting that words and doubt might have played a role in his downfall. It's a psychological twist that few expected, but if you followed TYREEK's career, it's exactly the kind of thing that would drive him. And it's not just fans reacting. Across social media, former players have chimed in. Chad Johnson tweeted something like, "He's not wrong. The mental pressure in this game is unreal." Shannon Sharpe hinted that some people in that building won't like what TYREEK just said. Even Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa reportedly avoided questions about it, saying only, "That's between TYREEK and the staff." You can practically feel the tension rippling through South Florida. But let's pause for a second and think about what's really happening here. This isn't just a guy complaining about an injury. This is one of the most electrifying athletes of our generation, standing at a crossroads between his body, his identity, and the modern machine of professional football. TYREEK Hill has always been about freedom, the freedom to move, to play, to dominate his way. And now, after being sidelined, it feels like he's questioning whether the very system designed to protect him has instead shackled him. That's the deeper story here. That's why people can't stop talking about it. There's also the rumor, And this is where things get really spicy. That TYREEK might be using this as leverage. Some insiders claim he's unhappy with how his workload has been managed and could push for changes behind the scenes. Maybe he wants more say in his training schedule. Maybe he wants different staff around him. Maybe he's planting the seeds for a future move if things don't improve. Because let's be honest, a player of his caliber always has options, and when a star like TYREEK starts making noise, teams listen. Still, there's another layer: the fans. Dolphins fans are fiercely loyal, and while many stand by Hill, others worry this drama could spill over into the locker room. Miami's offense has been one of the most dynamic in the league when Hill is healthy, and without him, it loses its identity. The fear is that this kind of tension, the who's to blame narrative, could mess with the chemistry that's made the Dolphins contenders. But then again, maybe this is exactly what Hill wants: to shake things up, to make sure nobody gets too comfortable, to remind everyone that greatness requires friction. What's crazy is how quickly this story has grown beyond football. Sports talk shows are debating whether modern athletes are being overprotected. Some are even saying that by blaming the system, TYREEK has opened a larger conversation about the balance between science and instinct in sports. Should players have more control over their own bodies, or should teams trust their technology? It's the classic human versus data debate, and Hill has become the face of it, whether he intended to or not. So where does this leave him? Right now, TYREEK Hill is reportedly focused on recovery, training with his personal team away from the spotlight. But you can bet this isn't the last we'll hear of it. The next time he steps onto the field, every camera will be locked on him. Every analyst will be waiting to see if his performance backs up his words. And if he comes back better, faster, stronger, if he torches defenses the way he always does, then maybe, just maybe, his critics will have to admit he was right all along. But if the injury lingers, if the explosiveness isn't quite the same, then the whispers will only grow louder. Did he push back too hard? Did he alienate the people trying to help him? Or is this all part of the TYREEK Hill story? A player who lives by his own code, succeeds by his own rhythm, and refuses to let anyone else write his narrative? Whatever the case, one thing's for sure: when TYREEK Hill speaks, the league listens. And this time, he didn't just speak, he roared. In the end, it's not just about the injury anymore. It's about control, about identity, about the clash between the old-school warrior mentality and the new world of data-driven football. It's about a man who feels that his greatness is being misunderstood, boxed in, measured by numbers that can't capture his heart. TYREEK Hill has broken his silence, and in doing so, he's reignited a debate far bigger than himself. The season will move on, the Dolphins will keep chasing wins, but the echo of his words, that simmering accusation that the system, not fate, failed him, will linger long after the final whistle. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.